come is gonna get you.
Genesis states that mind and body cannot be separated. It became clear to me that what I held in mind would appear if a physical existence in a physical material world was what I could imagine for myself, then that is why I have a material physical body and live in a material world composed of atoms. Genesis also says that the perfect idea of life descends and then it also ascends. Was it time for me to imagine a different kind of existence for myself? According to the scripture, there will be a constant progression from one level of mind to another, or should I say a change in orbit. In this way, could I avoid death? I had to read on. You'll see that in the book, I put my own personal experiences in this book. And I was reading from my own personal thoughts there. Scientists have now discovered holograms. It is now time for us to consider a holographic image. You know what a holographic image is. Can somebody explain to me how they make a hologram? I've given you a picture of how they make a hologram. It's this one. They use a laser light because a laser beam does not spread out like a flashlight beam. It is one beam that goes straight and does not disperse. They split that beam so that it will go two different ways. So it goes through a splitter, and one beam goes down here, the other beam continues on and then goes down. The one that continues on goes to a mirror, which then reflects it to another mirror, which then reflects it to a photographic plate or film. And that photographic plate is just a bunch of wavy lines. Just the waves. You can't really see an image on it. Now this one that went straight down, they both go through a diffusing lens and go to the screen. But this one goes to an object, say an apple, and then it goes to the screen. Now then the second step is they've shined the laser through this screen of wavy lines, and what happens? The image of the apple appears in midair. The apple is here, and I'm going to walk up and take a bite out of the apple. My hand goes right through it. It looks absolutely real, but it is not real. That's what you call a hologram. Now, you can read all this and it explains it, but what is happening is the same old story that we have been talking about all day here. We had the triangle with the energy that went this way and the energy that went this way, remember? And now then we have the two energies again. One is going this way, reflects in a mirror, goes up to the plate, photographic plate here, and all it produces is these wavy lines. There's your radiating life wave. This one goes, let's see, here's the gun thing. I don't know how to draw a gun. And it is directed to go down here and it looks at an apple, and then it goes up here. And so then they take this, which is full of wavy lines, and they have the gun shine through here, and they get the apple. Now, these wavy lines were consisting of this and this, which are interference. Run out of space. They interfere with each other. And that causes birth. See? Now, this looks real, but some scientists are saying that we live in a hologram. Some scientists are saying that our brain is a hologram. So in other words, we are a triangle. We are entertaining two different kinds of energy which are interfering with each other, and they are, one is penetrating into substance, and we are imaging it as it penetrates in, and then we give birth to it out here. But this is not really solid, it is space. Now, it's hard for us to grasp.
Yes, it is.
But you see that it's the same principle, isn't it? So what is the only reality?
Consciousness.
Consciousness.
Yes.
Quantum physics showed us that when you measure or look at or observe the particle or the wave, you can only see one at a time, and you have to choose which one you're going to look at, and the choice is what is going to appear that can be made into something. So consciousness, choosing, is that which creates things, beings, life, situations, events, everything, and they look real and feel real because I guess we live in such a low vibrating frequency that the atoms are gathering together into solids. As we rise now into higher frequency rhythms, maybe everything will just start falling apart. They say that people who reach cosmic consciousness, that they'll be in a room and all of a sudden the walls fall away. There's nothing there. They're just in light. All they see is light. That is full illumination. Now they don't stay there. They usually come back down into the physical body. But they say that's what happens. Everything just evaporates. There are no solid forms.
That's what Jesus did.
So I imagine that that's why Jesus could walk through walls and walk on the water and all that, like we talked about before, and manifest anything out of the air. He just had an image of it, and there it was.
And rise up from death.
And then when on the Mount of Transfiguration, he transfigured his body into a body of light. And Moses and Elijah were there, who had also ascended and transfigured their bodies. One representing the law, Moses representing the law, is always at work, and Elijah representing that of the healing energy of the wise. He had a mystery school, Elijah did, and he rose up in the chariot, remember? And ascended. So these two were still alive, and they took on a body of light and accompanied Jesus, or when the lesson, whatever it was he was learning, and helped him transfigure. And the disciples were so taken with it, they said, let's stay up here. This is so wonderful. And Jesus said, no, we have to go down the mountain into the world and teach the world what this is all about. So it's taken us 2,000 years to begin to understand what it's all about.
I have a question.
Yes.
There's always this talk of men who have ascended, and then they
Yes.
I don't read a lot about women.
Well, there are women who have ascended,
But
yes.
it's just odd, isn't it? It's the focus just seems
Yes.
on
Well,
Moses and
the
Jesus.
religion is a patriarch
Yes.
religion created by men, but Mary, of course, ascended.
Yes.
And they say that Mary Magdalene also ascended. And we have, if you study the masters, there are many women masters who have ascended, yes.
And they have destroyed some of the Bible book what we have now have been destroyed by the people so
The
many.
people that were ignorant and
Yes.
believed that it was paganism
Yes.
and all those kind of things, yeah. The rulership of the world in our particular experience has been by men. And that's why we get so excited when we see more women in the Congress and the Senate, and more women standing up for their own rights.
That's right.
They went into the Capitol in, where was it?
Texas.
And screamed so loud, in Texas,
Yeah.
screamed so loud they couldn't get the vote in
Yeah.
to ban abortion. And anyway, women are coming into their own now because this is the feminine energy of the feeling nature, which is the love
Yes.
that has to come with wisdom.
Yes. Yes.
Our planet has been assigned
Wisdom.
to learn love and wisdom. That's our assignment. And we learn it through hardship, and we learn it through good times and bad times.
Yes.
And now we've learned the law, so we got to learn how to work it.
Yes.
That's it.
With the-
Okay, so I'm
going
giving you
back-
this to take home and to look at and study.
Going
Yes.
back to that, though, so if we were learning the law, that would make sense with a male domination of society, if you will, because that's the intellect, logical side. And if we're moving from that to learning love, that would explain why women are starting to come into their own
Yes.
power. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
You're going to see more and more women coming into places of authority, I'm sure of that. And don't be surprised, you know. I think we're going to have a woman president next. And then after that, who knows, we may have so many women elected to Congress in the next 2 elections that there will be a minority of men. And then they're going to find out what it's really a hardship is.
And if they don't use their wisdom, they might not.
That's right, they better get their wisdom working or they're gonna be out of luck.
Yes.
You know? Absolutely. Okay,
Excuse me, they won't find the hardship because we will be living in love.
yes, that's true. It'll be much
Thank
easier
you.
on the men because they are the one that creates all the hardship in the first place. Very true. So anyway, so we see then that the hologram is the same old story. It is the definition of the two diverse opposite energies meeting, interfering with each other, passing through lenses and focusing, bouncing off mirrors, transferring the light, making wave patterns, and then particles. It's the same law that makes everything. So someday when we wake up and realize we come in here, maybe these walls will disappear. And we'll have to come back to them or either send money to repair the building. But, it might be
Well, by
kind
that-
of fun if they just disappear for a while.
At that point, we could just manifest the walls.
Yeah, we can manifest them back. That's what we can do. To heck with the money. Absolutely. Well, now we got to get a body here. So let us move on. Do you feel like your head is bursting?
Oh, of course not.
Oh,
I'm using my other head.
Yes.
okay. Well, let's turn over to page 83
Oh, good.
from the Bible. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast in the field, which the Lord God, the law, had made. The serpent is simply the original movement or current of breath energy that we found way back when we became a living soul. And it is now acting as an impulse that is moving in the soul. It's very subtle. It's not obvious, but there's something now moving in the soul. It moves kind of an undulating, crawling, sluggish way, so we don't get upset by it. We listen to it, and we follow this impulse. And the serpent is the ever-present urge to experience life in the field. The Bible is constantly talking about the field, and who else today is talking about the field? The physicists. They have discovered the field, which they thought was nothingness,
Yes.
is somethingness.
Yes.
And I think that we can think of it as kind of like this photographic plate. There's a bunch of jiggly lines, but out of that comes something. And this field of energy is where we live, and my interpretation is it's infinite mind. And we are like fish swimming in infinite mind, and we can partake of anything in there that we choose to eat and to experience and to image and to produce. And so now they're all excited about the field, and it's an energy field. So anyway, the intention or the will of the God seed is to experience its life and substance on all levels of mind, even out to the outmost perimeter, which would be the seventh lowest level. If we drew a circle, it would be the last rim on the circle, the outer circle. The seventh level is the outer rim. Therefore, the energy must turn back on itself, and incrustation will occur, causing crystallization of both consciousness and form. So the outer layer crystallizes in order to stay in shape, and that's why we crystallize.
So
I'm
is
sorry.
our DNA
We're
is
going to get to the DNA
turning
in a
into
minute.
crystallization, excuse me,
Oh, is it?
from carbon,
Oh, really?
and gradually.
Oh, well, I'm not taking in any carbon.
I
I am wholeness. I'm not going to accept that.
a question. You talk about the 7 layers earlier, and then you mentioned that man is at the 9th level. What
Well,
is
the-
that 7 layers?
No,
levels?
the man is not yet at 9.
Okay.
We're only at 7, and we're going to have to go through 8 and 9 to complete our evolution.
And become one.
We haven't got to 8 and 9 yet.
Okay, so there's
only
7 layers.
7 levels
Levels.
in this particular creative situation that we're in.
Okay.
When we rise up into the higher levels, there's probably 12 levels altogether. Why do I say there's 12?
Because the 12,
We have 12, 12, 12
Yeah,
all
just-
over
All
the
over the
Bible,
place,
all
yes.
over the Bible. But look here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points on the star.
yes.
I didn't draw it right, did I? Here's the thing. 6 and 6 make 12. We get to the book of Revelation, which is all about ascension, and they talk about the 24 that are around the Godhead.
Yes.
We have 24 signs of the constellations of the zodiac. And that comes from 12 and 12. So there's the higher and the lower, the thought and the feeling, the two levels of energy, one going this way, one going that way. It's the same stuff over again, only in different forms. So I think there's probably 12 planets, which we haven't discovered all of them yet. And there's probably 12 levels. Once we get up into the Atmic level, we're going to be able to see the other levels.
So the 7 levels that you started talking about is just kind of our starting point.
It's our starting point.
And we're
Yeah.
building on that, so to speak.
Because they tell us that
Okay.
9 is the number of man.
Okay.
And they talk about in the books on initiation that you can reach the 7th initiation, you can become a master, but the masters are still evolving. They're going on to the 8th and 9th and 11th and 12th initiations. They're becoming cosmic beings. That's what you're gonna be.
I will be, but I'm just confused right now.
But I mean, why would there be any stoppage? You know, God is infinite.
Right.
God is always beginning. There is no end to God. There's always a beginning. So when you reach one stage, then you're beginning another stage.
Yeah, I just
and
didn't
another.
understand
We
how
don't
the
know
7
far
levels
it's gonna
work
go.
with the 9, and so.
Yeah, well,
I-
they say 9 is the number of man because of the mathematics. You've completed the whole number scale
Okay.
there and returned to 1. And, but in numerology, it's called the number of man,
Okay.
the completion. Okay, so now then, we are going to turn over to, we've already talked about the idea of choosing, and guess who gets to choose? Who gets to choose with Adam and Eve here?
The woman?
We see that the feeling nature, the desire nature gets to choose
The woman.
because she's leaping way ahead of the sleepy-headed thought.
That's right.
He's still dozing. He just doesn't quite know what it's all about yet. But she's out there thinking, ooh, I wonder what it's like to be out there in that other realm
Curiosity.
and
yeah?
see opposites and all that. Wow. So the serpent or the current of energy subtly is flowing through her desire nature, and he says, can you eat of the trees? And she says, oh, we're allowed to eat of all the trees except that one.
Yeah.
The one that is the knowledge of good and evil. Well, what's going to happen if you do? Well, we're going to die. We're told we're going to die. Well, now, what's there to die to? She doesn't have a body. There's no body yet. She's got a consciousness and an image of light, but she doesn't, how can, is that going to die? I don't know. But anyway, the woman said unto the thing, here's the exact quote. We can eat of all the trees, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest you die. Lest means unless.
Unless you
You
die.
can touch it, but you're going to die if you touch it. Unless you want to die, you stay away from it. But you have to make the choice. See? You can touch it. You can think about it. But you have to make the choice. Are you willing to give up who you are? So here we go again. God gives its own self to become its creation. Is the feeling nature, the desire nature, desire enough to live in a tangible world, to give itself up to being what it is, to become a creature on the outer perimeter? of God's creation. So she looks at it and she says, well, you know, it looks like it's good to eat. And he says, ye shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing both good and evil. In other words, you're going to understand the opposites. You're going to understand how they operate, how they interfere with each other, what causes them then to turn into tangible things. You're going to be like a god because you're going to understand the law. So that sounds pretty darn good to the feeling nature. And so she says, it looks good for food. I think I will. So she takes of it and she wakes her husband up and says, ooh, this is good. Come on, take a bite. So he takes a bite and wow, both of them, their eyes were opened.
Is
And
there
they knew
significance?
that they were naked.
Is there significance that, if I remember the story right, didn't Eve take a bite first?
Yes.
And then get Adam?
Yes.
Is there significance to the fact that their eyes weren't open until both of them bit?
Well,
Is that
it
right?
just says, and the eyes of them both were opened after they both took a bite, because you cannot separate thought from feeling.
Okay.
Right.
They belong together. They cannot be separated. They are bone of her bone, flesh of his flesh. They
Okay.
are together.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So it is the desire nature, though, to experience that first is tempted and will accept the temptation. The thought might say, well, I don't know anything about that, you know, I can't be bothered, or I'm scared of it, or whatever, but the desire, oh gosh, gotta have it, you know? So anyway, they knew they were naked. That means they knew they were ignorant. They didn't know anything. All of a sudden, they're out in another situation of which they know nothing about. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the law or Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. Now the trees are the sensations of the five senses that is going on in the body. And they're in there hovering around with, oh, all these sensations are going on. This is so exciting, but yet I'm scared and I don't know what to do. And, ooh, here comes the Lord, here comes the law. I'm scared of that, so let's hide. But it doesn't work because God knows, of course. And he says, well, it's okay, but this is what's going to happen to you now, so get ready. I will greatly multiply your pain in childbearing, he says to the feeling nature. You shall bring forth children. Let your desire, yet your desire for your husband shall be there, and he will rule over you. Okay. So the desire nature will give birth to situations which are children. Will give birth to change, to uncertainty, and this will be painful sometimes. And then she will still cling to her husband, which is the thought, the thinking part, and the thinking is going to eventually rule over the desire or emotions. But in the beginning, it ain't so. So we'll see how long it takes for that to happen. There's a lot of us that give in to our desire nature even today before we think about the thinking nature. So then, the two trees are going to separate. And we see by the picture on page 93, a separation occurs again. The limitation, or the separation, which is way back from the original triangle separation, which in turn causes a rupture in consciousness, resulting in the actual separation of the two trees. So we have a picture of the tree of life with the fruit upon it, and we have the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which looks like a body. It is like the tree. It has the root system, the trunk, the two branches, and the head, or the fruit. And the brain has two, you notice how the brain is two sections? Now then, the next picture discusses, you can read this at home, the mystical marriage. This is what all the fairy tales are written about, all the ancient wisdom stories are written about, what all the Bible is written about. Everything is when the marriage will become actual, and the union between the perfect body pattern and the flesh human experience will become one through the Christ self taking over and ruling the life. That is the triangle again. Okay, now then, let's go over to the double helix and we'll close with that. The chapter on the double helix. James Watson and Francis Crick, down the bottom of the page 99, got the Nobel Prize by finding the structure of the DNA. And if we just look at what we have been drawing the whole time here, and how these form X's like this. X's, X's, X's. Where am I?
Right down there.
I lost track.
Right down. Right down.
Okay, let's just end it there.
Yeah.
Now then, helix means corkscrew or spiral. So if you take off these rough corners and you make it more like this, you have your DNA. This is the structure of the DNA. And they found out that if they do away with one side of the DNA, it makes a copy of itself and reproduces and becomes a double again. Why is it double?
Because it reflects the
Because
mirror.
everything is the truth. Right. See, everything is following the same law. In Genesis is the blueprint for everything that the scientists are now discovering, and the blueprint for our evolution, the blueprint for Jesus and the reason he did what he did. First, now we're going to go to the birth of Cain and Abel. Who were Cain and Abel?
The son of Adam and Eve.
The son of Adam and Eve, sons of Adam and Eve, right. This would be, according to my cosmic clock, in the age of Gemini, which would be at 6 o'clock on the clock going up backwards because it's inverted, mirrored image. So we have the twins. We have Jacob and Esau later. We have Adam and Eve, we have Cain and Abel, we have Jacob and Esau, and we go on through, and there's always the Aaron and Moses, and everything's double. Now then, so I want you to realize that what you're doing here by being on the planet Earth is not disobedience. The church taught people that eating of the fruit of the tree was disobedience to God. It was not disobedience. They were given the chance to make a choice. And that's the only way you evolve, is to make choices. And that's why in our lives, we never want to take that ability away from somebody else to tell them what they should do. They have to make their own choice.
That's right.
They will not evolve if you'll just stamp them down, and they will not evolve if they're not allowed to make their own choice. So we have not disobeyed. We are not sinners. We have not been born in sin. We're just electing to come here to learn contrast to learn the law and how to use it to progress evolution of humanity. That's what we're doing. So Adam and Eve, Adam knew Eve. The word is knew, K-N-E-W, on page 114. That means he is a thought. See, there's the mental is working. He knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived. So the thought went into the substance or the womb
Yeah.
of the feminine, which is waiting for the life idea to come into it, go right back to the beginning of Genesis, and she conceived and gave birth, and they had 2 sons. One was Cain, and Cain is described as a tiller of the field. Now, the field, of course, we're thinking in the latest scientific terms, is the field of mind where there's unlimited ideas. But let's pretend that in the story, it is an actual field in the 3-dimensional existence. So this means he is a farmer. He grows. He sees his good as being brought from the earth, and that is what feeds him and is his bounty, and that is his job. Abel means vapor. Whoa, well, vapor, he's kind of vague. He doesn't quite relate to Cain, and Cain doesn't understand him at all. You know, he is just not quite there, you know. He doesn't care much about him. So he kills him in the field. That means he separates himself in consciousness from this brother. There is no relationship between them. He does not communicate with him. He does not understand this vapor, this kind of mystical thinker. So we see then that these two represent the invisible part of us and the outer part of us, which we've gone over several times.